So I'm not going to lie to you. There's going to be a lot of fractions in these function rules. That's just how it works. Um, and it means that you're going to be multiplying a lot of fractions when you evaluate the expression that is your function rule. So here's my function rules expression. This is what I'm going to be putting numbers into to get outputs. So it's 1/2 x plus 5. And once again, you take out the x and you put in the number they're giving you for x. So here they're giving you -2. So I'm going to put -2 in parentheses to preserve that idea that we have multiplication going on between that 1/2 and that -2. And then I'm supposed to add 5. So always multiply before you do addition subtraction. That's your PEMDAS from last spring. So 1/2 times -2. Remember, the easiest way to do your multiplication of fractions is just to consider that really to be -2 over 1. Change it into a fraction. Multiply the tops, the numerators. Multiply the bottom, the denominators. And that means I'm going to end up with -2 over 2. And -2 over 2 is what that's going to make, and that's really the same thing as -1. So -1 plus 5 is going to be 4. So when I have an input of -2, I have an output of 4. Okay, next. Oh, I love this one. You'll come to really love zeros. All right, so I've got 1/2 times my x, and my x here is 0 plus 5. Anything times 0 is 0, people. Anything. So doesn't matter. Don't even have to know what the number is, and I know it will make 0. That's really 0. So 0 plus 5 is 5. See, I didn't even have to worry about fractions there. So when my input is 0, my output is 5. All right, back to fractions. So 1/2 times my new x value of 2. Okay, and I'm just going to rewrite that as 2 over 1 to help you see how to multiply by that fraction. And then when I multiply across the tops, I get 2. When I multiply across the bottoms, I get 2. So that's really just, oops, I need to get out of that pen. That's really 2 over 2. And I can rewrite that as 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So this is 1 plus 5, and that's 6. And then that means when I have an input of 2, I have an output of 6. And then finally, 1/2 times my new x, which is 4, plus 5. You can write this as 4 over 1. So when we do the multiplication, shoot, wrong pen. When we do the multiplication, we multiply across the tops, multiply across the bottoms. 1 times 4 is 4. And 2 times 1 is 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So this is really 2 plus 5. And that gives us 7. So when my input is 4, my output is 7. Let's do that with a slightly more difficult fraction and one that's negative to boot. So this is my function rule up here. I'm going to put it in my process column to help me figure out how to get my outputs. All right, so I'm going to have to multiply my input by -3/4, and then I'm going to subtract whatever that is by 2. So taking out that input variable x, I'm going to replace it with -8, and I'm going to write it as -8 over 1 to help me with the multiplication, and then I have to subtract 2. And when I do this multiplication first, I'm going to see, let's see, across the top, -3 times -8 is +24. Oh, I don't have space to write my fraction nicely. And then 4 times 1 is 4. And then if I actually do the division, 24 divided by 4 is 6. So this is really 6 minus 2. And that's 4. So when I have an input of -8, my output is +4. Over here, if I'm going to put in -4. So I've got -3/2 times my new input number of -4. And then I'll subtract 2. So doing the multiplication first, I should have written it as 4 over 1. Now I have very little space and it's going to be sloppy. Oh well. So -3 times -4. I always, guys, when it's a negative fraction, just automatically kind of just push the negative up onto the top numbers. I think it's easier to deal with. You don't have a negative on both top and bottom. That negative sign in front means only one is negative, either the top or the bottom, and I like to choose to make the top negative. So this would be positive 12, and then on the bottom, 4 times 1 is 4, and then 12 divided by 4 is going to give me 3, so 3 minus 2 is 1. So when I have an input of negative 4, my output is 1. Beautiful, 0. So negative 3/4 times my new input 0 minus 2. Anything times 0 is just 0. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. All right, so when I put in 0, I get out negative 2. And then finally, the last one, here's a positive number. So if I've got negative 3/4 times, I'm going to put it as 4 over 1 to make my life easier. And then I subtract 2, do the multiplication first. Negative 3 times positive 4, right? I'm going to end up with a negative answer. So I'm going to write negative 12, and then 4 times 1 is 4. Negative 12/4. So negative 12 divided by 4 is negative 3. So negative 3, take away 2 more is negative 5. So when I have a 4 as my input, as my output, I will have negative 5 like that. So we're going to be learning, we're going to be generating these tables, and then we're going to be using them eventually to graph our functions so that we can see visually what a function rule looks like on a graph by generating these point values for our tables.